Hello, welcome back to my channel, Lindsey Doe. Listen closely. She noticed you before you said a single word, and it wasn't what you think. She noticed. You walked into the room. She looked up, and in the space of about 4 seconds, before you introduced yourself, before she heard your voice, before she knew anything about your life or your character or your story, she had already formed a powerful first impression. Not about your age, not about your wrinkles or your gray hair or anything you've been worrying about since you turned 60. About something else entirely. Something you actually have significant control over. Something that, when it's right, makes a man in his 60s more compelling to a woman than men half his age. And most men over 60 have no idea what it is, which means most men over 60 are accidentally leaving their most powerful assets completely underutilized. That changes right now. You've accepted a story about aging that was never actually true. Here's what's been happening inside you, and I want you to be honest with yourself about it. At some point in the last several years, you started operating under a quiet assumption that the window for being genuinely attractive, for walking into a room and having women respond to you with real interest, had narrowed or closed. That the currency of attraction depreciated with age in a way that was irreversible. So you stopped investing in yourself the way you once did. Not dramatically, but in small, accumulated ways. You stopped thinking carefully about how you present yourself because it felt like effort aimed at a door that was already shut. You started carrying yourself slightly differently, slightly more apologetically, in spaces where younger men seem to occupy everything effortlessly. And that internal shift, that quiet resignation, is visible. It shows up in your body before you open your mouth, and it is doing you far more damage than any amount of gray hair or age-related change ever could. Because here's what the research on attraction and aging actually shows. What women who are honest about what draws them to older men actually say. The men who remain genuinely attractive well into their 60s and beyond are not the ones who fought aging hardest. They're the ones who carried themselves as though aging was not a sentence but a development. And that quality of carriage, the way a man holds himself, uses his body, occupies his space, starts in very specific physical places that women notice immediately. Let's talk about each one. 1. The shoulders, where your entire story is being told without words. Before she registers anything else about you, she registers your shoulders. Not their width, not their shape, their position, their relationship to the rest of your body. Whether they're pulled back and down, communicating ease, openness, and the settled confidence of a man who is comfortable taking up space, or whether they're curved forward and slightly raised, which communicates something very different, something that reads as either defensiveness or defeat, depending on how consistently the posture is held. Shoulders that are pulled back don't signal arrogance, they signal settledness. They say, this man has lived enough to be at peace with where he is. He's not shrinking from the room, he's not protecting himself from it, he is simply and completely in it. This matters enormously for men over 60 because the natural tendency, as self-consciousness about aging increases, is to physically shrink, to take up less space, to round slightly forward as if reducing your physical footprint will somehow make the aging less visible. It does the opposite. It makes everything about you look older, less vital, and less present than you actually are. Pull your shoulders back, not rigidly, naturally, with the ease of a man who has earned his space in every room he enters. That single postural adjustment changes the entire signal your body sends before you say a word. 2. The eyes, where your decades of living either show as wisdom or weariness. She looks at your eyes not to assess their color or their shape, but to answer one specific question her nervous system is asking. Is this man present? And the answer to that question is written entirely in how you use your eyes in social interaction. Eyes that are genuinely engaged, that actually look at the person they're looking at, that hold contact with comfort rather than either avoiding it or forcing it, communicate something that cannot be faked and cannot be purchased. They communicate that you are actually here, that the person you're talking to has your real attention, not the performance of your attention. This becomes exponentially more powerful in men over 60 because of what lives behind those eyes. The lines around them, the depth in them, the evidence of a life fully lived that younger eyes simply haven't accumulated yet. When a man in his 60s makes genuine, warm, unhurried eye contact, when his eyes carry both presence and depth, women don't see age, they see substance. They see someone who has looked at the world long enough to have something real to say about it. The men who lose this quality as they age are the ones who retreat into distraction, who look at phones, at floors, at the middle distance during conversations, not because they're uninterested, but because presence has become a habit they stopped maintaining. Reclaim it. Your eyes are one of the most powerful tools you have. Use them with intention. 3. The hands, the body part that reveals whether you are a man of action or memory. Women notice hands. This is not a secret. But what they're actually reading in a man's hands is something most men have never considered. They're not looking for softness or roughness. They're not assessing maintenance or grooming alone, though that matters. They're reading how he uses them. Hands that gesture naturally in conversation, that participate in the expression of ideas, that make contact warmly and without awkwardness, that look like they belong to a man who still does things in the world, communicate vitality. They communicate a man who is still engaged with life, still building things, still making things happen. Hands that stay still, that stay hidden, that gesture minimally or not at all, communicate the opposite. A man who has become observer rather than participant. For men over 60, the condition and use of your hands tells a woman whether you are living forward or resting backward. Whether this chapter of your life is a continuation or a wind down. Keep your hands well maintained, not manicured into softness, maintained into dignity. And use them in conversation with the natural expressiveness of a man who is fully engaged with what he's saying and who he's saying it to. 4. The posture of the spine, the most honest measure of how you feel about being alive. This is different from the shoulders, and it deserves its own attention. The spine is the structural center of your entire physical presence, and the way you carry it, whether it has length and lift, or whether it has begun to curve and compress, communicates something so fundamental about your vitality and your relationship with your own life that it bypasses conscious assessment entirely. A man who stands tall, not rigidly, but with the natural extension of a spine that is cared for and consciously held, looks alive in a way that is immediately compelling. There is an energy in vertical posture that reads as engagement with life, as someone who is still moving toward things rather than resting from them. A man whose spine has begun to curve, whose height has begun to compress, not from physical inevitability, but from the accumulated habit of not thinking about it, looks like a man who has started the process of folding inward. And that inward fold is one of the most significant aging accelerators that exists, because it changes the entire signal of every other aspect of your presence. This is the most correctable thing on this entire list. Spinal posture responds to attention and exercise faster than almost any other physical trait. Yoga, strength training, even simple daily awareness of how you're holding yourself, these create visible changes in weeks. A taller man, even if the height is recovered rather than original, is a more vital man. And vital is the most attractive thing a man over 60 can be. 5. The voice and throat. The body part men forget is a body part. Your voice lives in your body. It is produced by physical structures, the throat, the chest, the diaphragm, that respond to how you breathe, how you hold tension, how present you are in any given moment. And the quality of a man's voice is one of the most instantaneous and powerful attractors that exists, particularly for women, whose auditory processing of voice quality is deeply connected to their assessment of trustworthiness and presence. A voice that comes from the chest, that has resonance and depth and unhurried pace, communicates authority without effort. It communicates a man who is comfortable with silence, comfortable with taking his time, comfortable with the weight of his own words. A voice that is rushed, that lives in the throat rather than the chest, that rises in pitch under social pressure or uncertainty, communicates the opposite. It communicates anxiety. And anxiety, at any age, but particularly in men over 60, reads as a man who has not made peace with himself. The good news? The voice is completely trainable. Slow down your speech by 20%. Breathe before you respond rather than rushing to fill silence. Let your voice come from lower in your body by consciously breathing into your chest before you speak. These are not performance techniques. They are the natural vocal expressions of a man who is grounded and unhurried. And a grounded, unhurried voice coming from a man over 60 is one of the most immediately attractive sounds in any room. 6. What all 5 of these have in common. Look at the complete picture. The shoulders that are back and open. The eyes that are present and engaged. The hands that participate in the world. The spine that carries lift and length. The voice that resonates with unhurried depth. Not one of these is about the absence of aging. Not one of these is about pretending to be younger than you are or hiding the evidence of the decades you've lived. Every single one of them is about vitality, about the quality of presence and engagement and aliveness that a man brings to the moment he's in. That quality, vital, present, settled aliveness, is exactly what women find most compelling in men over 60. Not the absence of age, the presence of life. 7. The invisible 6th thing that determines everything. There's something that underlies all 5 of these physical things, something that either makes them all work or makes them all fall flat. It's your relationship with your own age. A man who has made peace with being 60, who carries his decades as evidence of a life fully lived rather than as a deficit to be apologized for, projects something through every one of these 5 body parts that no amount of physical maintenance can produce on its own. He projects dignity. And dignity in a man, at any age, but especially at 60 and beyond, is magnetic in a way that youth cannot replicate. Because youth is common. Dignity is earned. And earned things always carry more weight than inherited ones. Stop apologizing for your age in the way you hold your body, use your eyes, position your shoulders, carry your spine, and use your voice. Those apologies are visible. And they're costing you the very thing you're trying to protect. Your age is not your obstacle. Your relationship with it is. She's not looking for younger. She's looking for present. She's looking for settled. She's looking for real. And the man who gives her those things, through his shoulders, his eyes, his hands, his spine, his voice, and the quiet dignity with which he inhabits his own life, that man is not competing with anyone younger. He's in a category those men can't access yet, a category that only years and self-possession can create. You are not past your prime. You are in a different prime, one that requires different tools, different awareness, and a different relationship with your own presence. You now know what those tools are. Start using them. If this video shifted something in how you see yourself and what you still have to offer, subscribe. Every week on this channel, we go into the real psychology of attraction, presence, and what it means to be a man who is fully alive at every stage of life. The best chapters are written by the men who refuse to stop writing. You're still writing. Keep going.